The trophy has been secured. The parade route has been planned. But Tito won't be on his scooter for that parade. And we're going to talk about how Francisco Lindor might still help the Cleveland Guardians next season.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final Tito home game edition of Locked On Guardians. I am your host, Jeff Ellis. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed.
The Ohio Cup, staying in Cleveland. Guardians split the season series with the Reds, which means it stays with its previous owner, which it has since 2014? 2014 it stayed here?
Yes, that's what you said yesterday. 2014 was the last time the Reds won, and no one had won it outright since 2020, I believe. Side note, new cat.
Still won it outright.
I should point that out before people ask. Yes, this is a new cat with the people who are here just for the cats. New kitten. She's very loud.
That's how we lost all those views.
Yeah, she's going to be the new co-host of the show. Already a very loud kitten, so just going to warn people ahead of time. If you hear a squeak, that is why.
It's not. It's their cat squeaking over winning the Ohio Cup. Jeff, do you want to take a guess at the Ohio Cup MVP? If you're playing at home, don't look it up if you don't know already.
Did they announce this, or is this just you?
This is the official Frank Robinson Most Outstanding Player Award for the Ohio Cup. This is a very big award. It's Frank Robinson. I would argue that the Most Outstanding Player is actually, because it's named after Frank Robinson, is a bigger deal than the trophy itself.
I think Cleveland should get a draft pick compensation for having had a player win this award. Just like, if they won a Rookie of the Year or if a rookie finished top 3 in the MVP or Cy Young, they should get an award. I don't know. Let's say Class A. Let's go weird.
Not Class A.
Bo Naylor.
Unfortunately, not Bo Naylor, because he didn't play because obviously they're facing a lefty, and we all know that Bo Naylor doesn't even know the direction.
Well, you need Cam Gallagher's stellar defense, as he showed in this one.
Of course, absolutely. It's absolutely Cam Gallagher. No, you're getting warmer though in that direction.
Of a terrible Miles Straw.
Miles Straw is your 2023 Frank Robinson.
He had a good game tonight. In fairness to him,
he was 7 for 11 in the series against the 4 games against the Reds this year with a double, 2 steals, and 3 walks.
No, I mean he had a decent game tonight. I just felt like every time I looked up, he was on base. And it is funny that Miles Straw is the guy, but I mean, it's one of 3 guys with 2 hits. Of course, Cam Gallagher is the only guy who didn't get a hit at all, because Cam Gallagher makes Miles Straw look like a Hall of Fame bat. Unfortunately, I'm sure he's a great dude. Shane Bieber liked pitching to him. This is a rough offense, and this was a good performance by Bieber. Like, this has to make you feel a little bit better, either in terms of if you're a team trading for him, or if you're a Guardians fan with him going into next year, right? Like, coming back.
We'll get to that.
But it's all thanks to Cam Gallagher. That's what we've learned. But again, Straw was. I distinctly remember watching tonight's game, being like, "Wow, it feels like he's been on base a lot the last 2 games."
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, 500 more plate appearances guaranteed because he won the Frank Robinson award in this one.
You just want to make everyone turn off our podcast right now and never come back with that statement.
That's right. 500 more plate appearances. Everyone's gone.
You're going to have Guardians, the last 100 people just tune us off forever.
I don't know if it felt like there was more of an effort in this game because it was Tito's last home game, or it was the Ohio Cup. Obviously, everybody knew it was on the line. But they attempted 1, 2, 3, 4 steals tonight. They were only 2 of 4, to be fair. But I'm like, where was this aggression all year? Like, do they just know? Do they have something on Andrew Abbott? They didn't just steal on Andrew Abbott. They also stole 2 of the bases on Abbott. And one was on Duarte, who they got thrown out by. But maybe they threw out 2 of 4. Like, did they have something on the pitchers? Were they just trying to get one over on Luke Maley just for funsies, or do they actually put effort in? Because, like, you know, for a time this year, we would have loved to have seen 4 steal attempts in a year. Some games there were absolutely none. Miles Straw was thrown out. Naylor was thrown out, which by a lot, which was interesting. But Laureano stole and Freeman stole. I mean, where was that aggression all year? Like I said, it felt like there wasn't.
That was part of our problem.
Yeah,
we talked about that the new rules were supposed to benefit them, and then it did the exact opposite. Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see that aggression. I don't know why it took, 159 games to get us to show some aggression, but you and I have very different views on this. It's one of the few things we do, but it just felt like I don't know, that they were not ready for anything this year. They weren't ready for rule changes, weren't ready for approaches, weren't ready for the season to begin. I'll say it again. Every single guy on this team outside of Josh Naylor had a worse season. And that's weird to say every single player, but it's true. And it's weird. And it can't all just be players.
Yeah. When you have a whole organization go that direction, look, this is not a day to dwell. This is not a day to complain. They won. It was the last game of the year they really needed to win in terms of, emotional. They wanted to win the final home game for Tito. I will say it was nice. How often do you see in sports a manager get to leave on his own terms, or even players or managers leave on their own terms and be revered? I mean, especially in Cleveland. In Cleveland, how often do we as a city want to run every single player or every single person in charge of any sport, Cavs, Browns, Guardians / Indians, whatever. Like fans often do want to run certain guys out of town. There are people who obviously have been fed up with Tito, but like I said yesterday, it is hard to argue that the last 10 years or 11 years have not been one of the best runs in this franchise in the last century. I mean, they didn't win a World Series. You go back, it's been 75 years since they won the World Series. They didn't win one during Tito's tenure. That's disappointing, obviously. Still hard to argue that the last 11 years, for the most part, they have not come into every season expecting to win. I mean, nobody knew what to think in 2013 because they were coming off one of the worst stretches ever, right? They did make a couple free agent signings, all that didn't even really work out, to be honest with you. 2021, I think people had a lot of questions about, but other than that, you came into a lot of seasons expecting to win. I don't know if anybody expected what happened last year to happen. And of course, we had expectations this year, but it's hard to argue the last 11 years haven't been, for the most part, better for this organization. He is leaving this organization better now than when it was when he came in. And you don't get to say that very often for someone in sports to be able to write their own ending like this. I know it didn't end the way we wanted it to in 2023, but I think to have that is nice. Nobody left that ballpark tonight without chanting. Usually people are headed for the exits very quickly when the game is over or the ninth inning to beat traffic. Nobody did that tonight. How often do you hear a manager's name chanted, right? There were chants of Tito in the ninth inning and then obviously the end of the game. How often do you hear that in sports? A manager or a coach having their name chanted? You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unusual situation in Cleveland. It's a very unusual situation because they never get to keep anyone. He was beloved by everyone. There are some fans maybe it wasn't as beloved by, but just the way the media loved him and the way that his players seemed to love him. He was in charge for, in my opinion, the 4th best run in the history of this franchise. You have the 2 that won the World Series, those 2 runs. And then you have the 90s, and then there is this. And this is essentially, he was the guy who was managing for the 4th best run. And we can pick nits all day long, but he was in charge for the 4th best experience any fan has really had. And we're lucky. We had 2. We're the only, there's not a lot of generations that had overlap between 2 of those. Because, was it, the
70s, 80s, nobody wants to remember.
No. It was a great run. He was a central figure in all of it. And listen, I still was hoping they'd lose. I'm not going to lie. I think for me, it's all about upwards and onwards and next year. And I am fully focused on the chance to add elite talent to this team as opposed to sentimentality. And I know that's going to put me in the minority, and it's going to have a few people who maybe aren't happy with that statement, but that was my view. Like, no matter what happened, I'm rooting for a loss in every game. And like I saw, every day, or Kurt Smith talk about they're in third now. It's like, good. I wish they were in fourth. Let's get a higher pick. It doesn't matter if you're second, third, or fourth right now. What matters is where you pick.
It is. A little more on Tito, a little more on Bieber. Good start for Bieber. Some injury watch, and we will update lottery watch all coming up. Speaking of upward and onward, you don't need to plan into 2024 to buy tickets. You can wait till the last second. If you are one of those people, I have a little more anxiety. I don't like to wait that long. But if you are one of those people, Gametime is definitely the place you want to go to buy tickets. I was browsing around the other day looking for tickets to an Ohio State game. I probably shouldn't go. I let Ohio State football control way too much of my emotion if you follow me on Twitter. But I was checking the app, and there were some good deals on some upcoming games. The Maryland game, the Penn State game, I was looking for some deals on there. And when I was browsing through, I was able to see pictures of the seats. And, maybe I'll still pull the trigger on those tickets because they have deals on all kinds of events right up until an hour before it starts, whether that's a sporting event, theater, comedy, music, all that good stuff. And with the Gametime guarantee, you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. When you use code LOCKEDONMLB for that first purchase, after you download the Gametime app, you're also going to get $20 off that first purchase, so you can't beat that. Terms apply. Create an account and redeem that code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And the Guardians will be off Thursday, but Friday, the final weekend, they get to hang out with Miguel Cabrera this weekend as he goes out as well. He'll join Tito retiring.
Talk about an unusual situation. How unusual is it to have like kind of back-to-back series where there's like a Hall of Famer retiring?
Yeah. Should be an interesting weekend in Detroit, and you can listen to all that action no matter where you are on your Sirius XM app starting on Friday night at 6:40. You made a good point before we went to break about the players, and the players would not let Tito go back in the dugout. Jose Ramirez kept him out to get his final, adieu from the fans, which is cool. And I always talk about how much do coaches and managers really have influence over what happens on the field. And I think there's a lot of mixed opinions, and there's not a whole lot of science and data behind it that we can really prove. The one thing I could say, it's communication. It's in sports with pro athletes, to get them behind you 100% and talk about you the way they do. That matters. The players do say they love Tito, and look at the situation in San Diego, like right now. And this is nothing against Bob Melvin, truthfully, because I think a lot of people have a very high opinion of Bob Melvin. But right now, there's a lot of mess going on there. You've got a lot of talent on the field. You've got a GM who's probably going to get fired, who might be at the fault of all this. But there's people who say that Melvin and Preller don't get along, and I see comments that say, well, you're not always going to get along with people you work with, and this is true. But communication really matters, and it really helps when the players are willing to run through a brick wall for you, as the saying goes. And if you're able to communicate, you can at least all effectively be pulling in the same direction and have the same goals and meet the same goals if there's no backstabbing going on behind the scenes. And I'm sure there are things they don't agree on, but there's a lot of bad situations out there. And also, like you said, Tito's going to be a Hall of Famer. He did break Boston's curse, and you could argue the players did that. Obviously they did, but they were down 3-0 and they came back to win that series. And Tito chose to come to Cleveland. I remember when they hired him, and the people on SportsCenter didn't even believe he was coming to Cleveland. Like, I don't think anybody believed he was coming to Cleveland. It was amazing that he chose to come here, because that's usually not the kind of candidate Cleveland gets. So,
well, he did leave Boston with some issues,
Yes.
which, you know,
Sure
it led to him coming here. And I think part of that, the reason he wanted to come here is the same reason Jose wanted to stay here, which is
it's easier.
the ability to play without some of the increased annoyances.
Agreed. Sure, we'll talk about Tito next week and in the coming days as well, because there's a lot to say and there's a lot to learn from his tenure here and a lot to look forward to in terms of what might be next. And I'm sure we'll talk about managers more. Good start from Shane Bieber. I was most impressed by the fact that, again, a lot of sometimes when you're throwing pitches or however you're game planning, it depends on the lineup you're facing, but would have to think that it was good to see that he relied on that knuckle curve as his second most used pitch. He got a lot of swings and misses on it. He actually got some called strikes on it. That pitch has been I mean, outside, 2020 is 2020. That pitch is kind of what led him to the Cy Young Award that year. That pitch was absolutely nasty for him in 2020. And he has kind of knocked that back in terms of his offerings. Tonight, he threw a ton of them. And I thought he looked probably as good as we've seen all year tonight. So that was a good sign to see.
100%. He looked, I felt like that was one of his 5 best starts of the year, honestly. Mm-hmm. And just seeing him go out and perform. And again, this is a very good Reds offense. It is a team that has performed well all year, and to go out and see him do that, like I said, either you view it as that has to make a team feel a little more comfortable in acquiring him, or if you're going to hold on to him for at least part of next year, makes you feel better about having him as an option. I have no idea what's going to happen with Shane Bieber. Anyone who does feel like they have a strong idea or knows what's happening, I would call a liar. I don't think anyone knows what is going to happen, just because we'll have to see how the market shakes out and everything else. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And this was a start that made you see shades of the Shane Bieber of even a year ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was not his Cy Young self. And again, we need to be careful how much stock we put into 2020 for anybody. Mm-hmm. But the 2019 version of Shane Bieber was an all-star, right? And I don't know if he was as good last year as he was in 2019, but he was pretty good. He was good enough to be a guy that you felt good about. Excuse me 1 second. Starting game 1 of a playoff series. And yeah, you said that's as good as he looked. He looked like he did last year. So that's good. He's still, is at 90, 92. That's interesting. You pointed out that you don't know what's going to happen, because I was going to put you on the hot seat. Obviously, that's Shane Bieber's last start of 2023. I was going to ask you quickly, yes or no, is that the final start for Shane Bieber in a Cleveland uniform?
Yes.
You just said you didn't know. You just said you didn't know. Now you're changing your answer.
Nobody knows. I mean, I'm not saying like bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it. But if I have to go one way or another, I say yes, because the ability for whatever acquiring team to maybe get a draft pick out of him, I think adds some more value. And you and I talked about this off air. Listen, this is a lost season. It's been a bad season. But is there a world where, if you're Cleveland this offseason, you flip Bieber and you get something that helps you now, and you flip him to an Arizona, you flip him to, I can't remember what other team we talked about, a team that has one of those competitive balance picks. And if you just try to really load up on this year's draft, because they're going to have 2 first rounders, like, can you get help plus? Like, that's where it gets interesting to look at.
Yeah, that's some of the factors. I mean, you've pointed out multiple times before in here that, look, the market for pitching is going to stink. You've got Blake Snell, who we talked about the other day. He might
be really expensive.
He's going to be expensive, and I don't know. I wonder how many teams are already thinking about, like you said, they're going to regret signing him. Just because. I wouldn't want, like, if the Guardians have money to spend, I would not want. Yeah, he's going to win how often is a guy going to win a Cy Young, and you're like, I don't want that guy. Like, he's a free agent, and you're like, I don't want to sign him. And I think people are going to regret it. Whoever signs him, I think there might be some regret there. I agree. It's going to be weird. We could be totally wrong, but it's going to be him. It's going to be Nola. It's going to be Lucas Giolito, who is still going to get a multi-year deal, but it's still, and you have Shohei Ohtani, who can't pitch next season. So the market is incredibly thin. There might be a team out there willing to say they are willing to trade something of value for Shane Bieber in 2024. And like you said, that allows them to put the qualifying offer on him and get something back. It depends. Like, if an offer out there exists that, like you said, helps Cleveland in 2024, can you get the Lindor deal? Can you get where you get some help in 2024?
I mean, not that level. You're not going to get anywhere approaching that level.
But if you can get a deal where you get help in 2024 and you get help you get a potential to get help down the road in the same deal.
Yeah.
Is that better than playing one more year with him and just sending him out with a qualifying offer? I would say yes, if that deal's out there. We are going to talk about Francisco Lindor helping Cleveland out one more time, possibly here in just a few moments, unless you got anything else you want to say on Shane Bieber.
Nope.
Yeah.
Snapping the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off this season today. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Isn't that true?
Yeah. The final series of the year starts on Friday at 6:40. That is going to be Cal Quantrill and Joey Wentz for the Tigers. Mm-hmm. If you are at a high school football game, make sure you have the SiriusXM app downloaded and search Guardians so you can listen to all the action no matter what bleachers you're in and who you're cheering for. I probably should point out, too, that Gabby Arias went on the IL on
fractured wrist.
A fractured wrist. Yeah,
that scares me. Wrist injuries are scary.
Yeah, so that's why Rocchio was up on Wednesday and played. Yeah, that's a bummer. That is a bummer. And it sounds like there's a chance that Jimenez may not play again this season. He did foul ball off a knee, and they're a little more hopeful on him. He's not on the IL, I guess, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play this final weekend either. But hey, maybe that helps Cleveland. I don't know. Do you think that Cleveland is more likely to win any games this weekend with Arias at short, or Tyler Freeman, or Brian Rocchio, or Jose Tena? Who's more likely to give you a chance to win individually? It's Gabby,
Tena,
right?
Yeah, I think Tena gives you the lowest chances.
The lowest?
Freeman. It's Tena or Freeman gives you the best chances to lose, because I think Freeman's the worst defender of that group. And I think Tena's the worst hitter of that group.
Although they were going to play, Joey Wentz is a lefty, so if you start Gabby Arias against a lefty, you can guarantee some bad results.
Yeah, but it's not like
it's two lefties. If Gabby played against two lefties this weekend, he would contribute nothing offensively.
Ty Freeman's had a pretty putrid year and can't hit lefties either, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, Gabby at least would give you run-saving defense that might cost you one of the pitchers giving up a run. I'm with you now. After winning that game, I wouldn't be against a win on the final day of the season. I know, like you said, sentimentality shouldn't be the way to go here. I wouldn't mind it, but now that they've at least won the final home game for Tito, I'm perfectly okay being swept by Detroit. If they lose Friday and Saturday to Detroit and win Sunday, Detroit will still finish ahead of them in the standings. That still puts Cleveland in third place.
But the Pirates may not.
Who do the Pirates have?
I gotta double.
The Marlins. Check. The Marlins are desperate. The Pirates have the Phillies tomorrow. Who tomorrow's going to be a hangover lineup for the Phillies. So the Pirates are going to win that game. I guess you never know, but it should be a hangover lineup for the Phillies on Thursday.
Cleveland just got swept by Kansas City. Nothing is assured.
This is true. Well, okay. Cleveland is not a good team this year. We've established that.
The Phillies got swept by the Royals. Nothing is assured.
Okay, I'll give you that. The Marlins, though, are desperate. They lost to the Mets today in at least game one.
They're keeping up that in game two. 2 runs in the 9th. They're going to win game 2 after the
Marlins, the Mets.
The Marlins.
Oh, come on, Mets. Okay, so this is what you're alluding to. The Mets are playing the Marlins. We needed the Mets to beat the Marlins to help out Cleveland because the Mets are also ahead of Cleveland in the draft standings. Who do the Mets play over the weekend?
Isn't it somebody? Do they have the Phillies? Like with the hangover lineup? I thought someone is facing.
Well, that's Thursday. The Mets have the
No.
Phillies over the weekend. Yeah. So
Weekend,
the Phillies cannot improve. They already had the first wild card. It's almost guaranteed. I think they've already clinched the top wild card spot. Actually, there's no moving. So the Phillies can rest and be prepared. So this would be a lot easier if you had a full, like, the 40-man roster call-up thing, right? Where you could call up anybody and bench everybody.
Yeah.
With only going to 28, there's only so many guys you can rest out there.
And for the people getting annoyed with this, here's the basic calculus on all of this, just to throw this out. If Cleveland is currently slotted to pick 11th right now, the win today combined with Detroit having an off day, Pittsburgh losing, and the Mets splitting, it probably eliminates them from 7th. But if Cleveland could have gotten up to the 7th pick in the draft, that's $1.6 million difference in pool money. That's huge. I mean, think about it. You look at the guys they signed. There's not a lot of guys who got that much money. You are getting the equivalent of a bonus second round pick that you can spend. Now, yes, the higher picks will cost more, but there is that. And then, the difference between 11 and 8 is still $1.3 million. So it is a huge hit when you fall out of that top 10. And they're lucky because the Nationals can't pick higher than 10th because of the new rules. So they can, even though Washington should have the 4th worst record in baseball, I believe, or 5th worst record in baseball. Right? Yeah, they'd be 5th worst. They can't. They have to be 10th. So this is why we're rooting against Cleveland right now. A chance at a top 10 pick in a year that has about 7 really good college hitters. There's a chance that you're looking at a guy who could help this team in a year and a half. Still get there for Jose's prime, still, and power hitters.
Tail end.
Yeah, but power hitter is a way to continue. There's nothing to be gained by winning. If the Tigers finish 2nd, that's good. Who cares? That doesn't mean anything. Like, I literally told you off air 2 days ago that, like, if you want to test for, like, who is a bad sports writer, go find, or the sports writer you don't need to follow, go find the guy who's going to write a whole article about the importance of the Tigers finishing 2nd. There's no importance to it. That's just, it's phony baloney. They're going to finish 2nd because, one team isn't making an attempt. Like, I anything other than that is just it's looking for a story to write that doesn't exist. I like the Tigers. If the Tigers jump out next year, that wouldn't surprise me at all. They have a lot of top hitting talent coming together. Mm-hmm. But the value of finishing 2nd versus 3rd, it doesn't. You're 1st or you're nothing. You're in the postseason or you're trash. Like, that's essentially what it is. It's not like these guys, we're going to finish 2nd. No, that's not how it works. No one's getting riled for that.
The only good consolation prize that exists is the Ohio Cup. That's the only thing. Finishing 2nd place doesn't matter. The Guardians have their trophy. There's no trophy for 2nd place in the AL Central. There is a reason they give out a trophy for the Reds and Guardians series every year. So that tells you right there. Any sports writer who thinks that the Ohio Cup is not important, you don't have to follow them either. But if they think that,
I guess, 2nd, don't follow me.
Don't follow Jeff, because he doesn't think the Ohio Cup is important. How dare you? Have you seen that thing? There is a real trophy. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
and they have an award named for.
It's a bunch of baseballs as sticks just sticking out the side of
it's just a piece of metal, as Rob Manfred would say, right?
Well, Rob Manfred is just.
Hey, I will give him credit. We
don't give him credit. He gets no credit for anything. No credit to Rob Manfred. That wasn't him. Okay. That's the Players Association pushing for that as a way to incentivize prospects. That is something he gave up to help get it done. That is not him. Okay. It's not like he came up with it. So Rob Manfred gets credit for nothing.
Okay, so Tony Clark.
You get nothing.
Tony Clark. Thank you, Tony Clark, for negotiating the lottery. Yeah, they'd pick 11th right now without the lottery. Although without the lottery, Washington will also pick 5th. You're right. So. Yeah. And, well, even without the lottery this weekend against Detroit would still matter in terms of draft standings. And I think also want to point out too that yes, we think this is a good draft class coming up. I think we both agree that this past draft class was also pretty good. There's a chance you could
better at the top, but this one's a little deeper on the back end of the top 10.
Yeah. So most years, like. 2 years ago, whatever. Most years, you might be saying, well, this doesn't matter because there's no guarantees in the MLB draft. And there is never any guarantee. But the one thing you can say consistently about Cleveland is that they have not ever picked, like you said, Clint Frazier was what, the 8th pick?
No, he was 4th.
His fourth. Okay, so they have not picked that high since then.
Yeah.
They are.
Clint Frazier, by the way, just turned 29 to make you realize how long ago that was. He was an 18-year-old when they drafted him. So
I still thought he was going to be an all-star. I will say that was one of my biggest misses. I thought he'd be an all-star, but yeah. So you could always say, yeah, the MLB draft doesn't matter. But like Jeff said, there's a chance that there are some guys in this draft next year that could fly through the system as a hitter and help you no matter what you end up doing. So that the opportunity next year uniquely. Now, most years this might not matter, but this is a unique situation possibly to finish. And like you said, there's 2 years. If Cleveland can do this in 2024, but they can't do it in 2025, correct?
No, they can. So, but there's a weird, there's a weird world where, like, let's say they have a high pick this year. Let's say they go, but then they next year just barely miss the postseason. They could end up with top 10 picks in back-to-back years because guess what? Next year, Detroit can't pick in the top 10. Kansas City can't pick in the top 10. All those teams can't. It's going to be really weird. There's going to be a whole bunch of teams that can't pick in the top 10 next year. Colorado, Oakland, Kansas City. The Angels were just barely outside, but they couldn't because they're a big market. The Mets, Pittsburgh, Detroit, none of those teams could pick in the top 10 next year.
Yeah. Hey, tomorrow's show.
Be a weird draft.
Tomorrow's show, mailbag. We got some other things maybe we want to talk about, but let's get some mailbag questions. So YouTube comments, Twitter. Yeah, I don't know where else you'd get us. Maybe we can find another way for you to get at us. I don't know. But YouTube comments, social media. Mailbag for tomorrow.
Yep. And we want to thank all of our everydayers for joining us, commenting, leaving a review, all the kind words for all of you out there. We appreciate you. And let's end it how we always end it. Go, go, Guardians, go. Goodbye, Tito. We have enjoyed you. Going.